Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with David Sands. David, it's great to have you on the show.
Nice to see you, Ben, and thank you for inviting me to your show. This is great.
So we are going to be talking about, I think, a really interesting topic today. David is an expert in healthcare and healthcare investment, and we're going to be talking about really, I'd say, something that we're seeing in the investment space, which is this kind of patent cliff opportunity. A lot of patents coming of age now, and seeing what people can do to make the most of that opportunity. But before we kind of get into the healthcare discussion, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about yourself and your career.
Thank you, Ben. So I started my career with a very large pharmaceutical company in Basel, Switzerland. I was very, very fortunate to have a scholarship that was sponsoring my PhD. And I was very fortunate to work with a team that developed one of the most important drugs in pediatric cancer today in the market. Back then, 20 years ago or 30 years ago now, there was this concept of patent cliff. Every year, over every 5 years, we would talk about how many drugs are going off patent. For drugs to go off patent is great. You democratize access to drugs much cheaper, more accessible, and it keeps the engine of discovery running. Okay, so you don't want patents to go forever. So we have in the pharmaceutical industry a window of 20 years of patents. That's it. From the time that we file the patents until when the patent expires. So it is a race against clock. You want to commercialize this drug as soon as possible, because every day that you are in drug development, you're not launching, you're losing millions of dollars. So what is very clear is that the pharmaceutical industry has been growing. We have more drugs than ever. What is peculiar is that in 2010, the patent cliff was only $30 billion. We defined the patent cliff in a period of 5 years. What are the drugs for the next 5 years? They're going to go off. That means a genetic company will come and will sell it for pennies on the dollar. So back in 2010, between 2010 and 2015, you had a period of 5 years where the whole industry had $30 billion going off patent. Fast forward in 2025, for the next 5 years, the patent cliff is of 300 billion. Okay, so it's 10 times bigger than in 2010.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I'm curious. I mean, certainly drugs have gone off patent for years and years and years. And so I imagine that there probably is perhaps almost like a traditional cycle of what happens to these things. I mean, I'd suppose from a customer angle, we always see it going from being a brand to a generic somehow. But tell me a little bit about those paths. Like, what usually happens and what do you think is going to happen this time?
Yes, that's a very good question. So when a drug is discovered, companies will file a patent. And again, the clock will start ticking. And after 20 years, boom, the patent is gone. So what happens when the patent is gone is that any company in the world can start selling the generic drug. Okay, so you will still find the branded drug. Today you can buy Lipitor or you can buy atorvastatin. So you can basically go and buy Lipitor generic for pennies on the dollar. Okay, you still, if you want to pay the branded product, you still can pay it, but Medicare will not reimburse you. Medicare will reimburse you for the generic drug because it's substitutable. You can substitute the brand for the generic. So what happens is that companies like Pfizer will stop all type of commercialization, all type of advertisement. So you don't see advertisement of Lipitor anymore. So what happens is that the companies like Pfizer will continue selling this product, but then you have this ramp that basically goes down very quickly to basically almost nothing. And then you have 20 genetic companies that will start selling these drugs for very, very low cost. And that's what happens. This is the life cycle of the pharmaceutical drugs.
Right. So they'll start selling it at lower cost. But is there also maybe other paths? Like, one of the things that I notice, certainly that's been popular, not with pharmaceuticals, but with, how should I say, kind of the kind of the I want to say Gen Z new products that are coming out, right? Like all these like coffee replacements or energy buzz things where they'll take kind of like a couple of ingredients, which we know are really active ingredients, right? And then they'll bundle in a whole bunch of other stuff on top of it, right? Is that something that you'll start to see more of in this cycle where someone will take, let's say, a core drug that was developed, you used the Lipitor example, but something like that, and then they'll combine it with other things, and then they'll try to build a new brand around this?
Yes, and that happens a lot. Okay, so going back to 2025, we're going to see $300 billion of branded name drugs going off patent, and it is a total of about 200 drugs. Okay, so starting this year and for the next 5 years, you're going to see 200 pharmaceutical products that are going off patents. One of the things that people will do is to launch a slow release formulation that will have its own formulation patent,
Right.
that you will have a life. Instead of having one or two pills per day, maybe you take one pill every 2 days or every week. So you will see the extension of the product. The original product will go off patent. That will go for basically very low cost. But then you will see new versions of with slow release, with different delivery mechanisms. And to your point, you will see combination. You will see companies that will file a new patent saying, if I take this drug and I take this other drug and combine it, I accomplish a new mechanism of action that enables to provide a better performance, a resolution of the treatment. So definitely you will, and there have been very successful cases where companies have combined drugs to launch a new branded name product.
Now, David, this is obviously a watershed moment. So a lot of drugs coming into the market and really stepping away from their creators or founding companies. Do these companies like a Novartis or a Pfizer or any of these companies, how do they go through the process of soliciting people who might want to get involved? I mean, is there just a website that kind of says this is now the patent is expired and everyone knows about it, or how does this happen?
So these drugs, like put the example of Humira or pembrolizumab, Keytruda or Opdivo, these are very important drugs. Okay, these are drugs that generate 20-30 billion dollars a year. So in the case of Keytruda or pembrolizumab, these are oncology drugs that everybody knows. Everybody knows that Keytruda is going off patent in 2028. In other words, when you are a patient and you go for a cancer treatment, you will not be aware of when the product goes off patents. Okay, it's very unusual. The patients will know the patent life of a drug. So what happens is that administration like Medicare, the different commercial insurance companies, they know that Keytruda is going off patent in 2028.
Yeah.
And that means today, in 2028, you will be able to buy Keytruda for a much lower cost. And there will be a genetic company that will launch the first version, will have 180 days exclusivity, okay, at a much lower cost. And after 6 months, you will see a flood of 20 genetic companies that will start producing pembrolizumab for a much lower cost. And then they will start eating each other lunch. They will start lowering prices. And then slowly you will see the prices going lower and lower because they want to sell to more hospitals. They want to sell to more plans. So you will see the competition. You see the free market.
So, David, are you telling me that my insurance costs might go down?
I just realized today that my home insurance is going up this year. So I think that we're going to see a lot of things going up this year.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting to kind of see how that's going to play out. Do you see new types of investors getting involved in the space? Is this something that private equity firms are looking at getting involved, or who's getting involved in this?
Yes, definitely. We are going to see for the next 5 years a big performance in biotech. And if you look at the biotech index XBI, you will see that has been going up for 1 year 15%. So I think that you will see a strong performance in biotechnology sector in the US. I think that other markets, when you look at China, definitely
Hmm.
they're going to struggle more. And you see a lot of acquisitions of Chinese companies that have developed a nice portfolio of assets. And we have seen basically at least one acquisition every week of there are 3,000 biotech companies in China that for geopolitical reasons they are running out of money and there are no investors, there are no US funds want to invest in China, so they're running out of liquidity and they cannot raise money. And I see a lot of companies that we met maybe 5 years ago now coming back saying they need to raise money in the US.
Yeah.
So US investors are very reluctant today to invest in companies with Chinese assets. And you see a lot of money, a lot of companies acquiring these assets, and even private equity funds buying out these Chinese companies. So
Right.
definitely, you will see a lot of M&A, a lot of private equity. As you know, in 2000, when we started in year 2000, there were about 6,000 biotech companies publicly traded. Now this number has been going down, and the reason is because more and more biotech companies want to stay private. Okay,
Right.
so you see a lot of transactions private to private. The game for the next 5 years will be acquisitions from these 30 large biotech companies buying out these smaller biotech companies that have a large pipeline, have drugs that can be developed and hopefully launched within the next 5 years. So they will be looking for phase 2 data, phase 3 data, and
Right.
looking for acquisitions at this latest stage of drug development so that you can launch, you can have commercialization within the next 2 or 3 years.
David, listening to you talk about this space, you clearly know a lot about it. You've played many, many different roles, worn different hats in this world. Tell me a little bit about what drives your passion for this space.
I love the medical kind of sector. The healthcare sector is unbelievable. It is probably the best war to fight, the war against cancer. If you think about it, it is
Hmm.
probably the most beautiful fight. In other words, if you want to go to war, why not go to war against cancer or against rare disease? Or these are the kind of honorable, the big game, the
Yeah.
wars that every mankind should be experiencing or should be involved one time in their life. So definitely being on the banking side and helping these biotech companies accelerate, find the right financing, find the right partner, it is very important for these
Right.
companies to survive and to get for us to benefit from all these drugs. It is very important that there is a whole village. It takes a village to grow a child, and
Yeah.
definitely this is part of the village. I mean,
But it's such an interesting thing because on the one hand, you can say it's so hard to obviously create a new drug in the first place, but it's not so easy to create a generic. I mean, you still need a level of knowledge and a skill set, and then you're going to need the facilities to make that happen. Are there certain markets that are certainly like ahead in this game? I mean, do we
yes,
have a
very.
general trend? Yeah.
That's an excellent point. If you take, for instance, pembrolizumab, is one of the most successful monoclonal antibodies. Period. Is the most
Yeah.
successful drug against cancer in the history of medicine, at least in the history of oncology. And
Hmm.
these biosimilars are today are easier to develop. But again, it's not like cranking out a machine that stamps pills
Yeah.
and produces the drug. To your point, you need to go through the FDA to show that is biosimilarity. And there is still a lot of investment that you need to put to start launching a generic biosimilar. There
Yeah.
are many companies that do this all day, that they don't launch branded products, but they do very, very well by launching many, many biologics, biosimilars, which basically we have a history of 20 years, 25 years of biosimilar industry. So you have the branded drugs, pharmaceutical. Then you have this whole universe of biosimilar companies that know how to do it very, very well. And once you have defined the drug, is patented, you know the structure, you know the production. It still takes time and money and resources to build it and to
Yeah.
make it, but it's much easier. You don't have
Wow.
you're not doing discovery. You're just copying one product is already approved.
Yeah, one of my sons spent last summer as an intern at one of these kind of like biosimilar companies, and it was quite interesting to see how that world has evolved over the years. The company was certainly taking products that had reached that kind of patent cliff and marketing them at a lower cost. they were also building their own drugs, their own products, right? And they were actually manufacturing some of the products that had not gone yet to their patent cliff. They were like almost like an outsourced factory, so to speak, right? So that kind of middle space has really evolved quite a bit in terms of the players. And the reason why I was asking about certain markets, I feel like certain European markets seem to do a lot of this. I know kind of northern Spain, there's a lot of places in Barcelona area right now. But I was curious if countries like India were really kind of stepping into this. Are there countries that you see as being the places that are going to lead the way in this area?
Yes, definitely. India is a big supplier of biosimilars. If you
Mm-hmm.
go to Hyderabad, is one of the biggest cities in India with a whole number of companies, biotech companies there, and they're very successful. To your point, some of these companies are manufacturing facilities for big
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies. So to your point, they are CDMOs. They are
Yeah.
already manufacturing contract organizations. They know very well the process. They know how to produce it. The FDA regulates them and visits them on a regular basis. And you want this concentration. You want this concentration of experts, chemical engineers that know how to manufacture these drugs under FDA regulatory scrutiny. And that later on, when the patents expire, they are the natural first player, is the natural
Right.
fit. And there is one that will have an exclusivity for 180 days. So even
Right.
before the patent expires, as of today, Keytruda will expire in 2028. You have one biotech company in India that it already has the exclusivity for the first 180 days. But there are
Wow.
another 20 companies in the world that will be ready once this window of 180 days expires. Then everybody starts producing the same product.
Wow, what an interesting space that you work in. Well, David, I feel blessed I've had a chance to speak to you about this. We've been talking with David Sands, and we've been talking to him really about, call it a patent cliff that's really we're in the beginning throes of here regarding the pharmaceutical space. The areas we're going to see a lot of drugs that are going to be reaching their patent expiration date and are going to be opening up to a broad set of new players to offer them as new brands, new variations of how those drugs can be released throughout your body. So kind of time lapse type of things, and it's a challenging opportunity to think about how to manage all of that. But what an amazing opportunity! What an amazing challenge! And David, thank you so much. If someone wanted to learn more about how you can help people that are navigating this world, where's the best place to find you?
The best way is to go to LinkedIn, David Sands, LinkedIn.com, and I'm very engaged in conversations and meeting everyone.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the Uncaged show today, and we look forward to having you back. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.